Hey, what's going on, guys? It's your boy Chick Smooth. Glad you guys are enjoying the content. If you haven't already, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, and hit that notification bell so you can know when I post. I post really often, about 4 times a day. All right. So, if you're enjoying this content, hit the Cash App if you want to donate. Subscribe to my channel. Let's get right into this one.
We in the same conference room. It's like, I thought I was canceled. I thought you was canceled too. Guess that shit ain't working. And I think there's something to I think Mo was talking about being canceled on Twitter, being canceled on real life. It's easy to cancel somebody on Twitter. It's real hard to cancel somebody in real life. So it become like, well, what are you trying to do? Like, are you trying to cancel somebody in the social media space, or are you trying to cancel somebody in real life? Right. And that's two different pieces. And folks who think that they got a certain level of influence and power, but all your influence and power is filtered through these digital relationships, right? These digital gateways, these social gateways, even these editorial gateways. But that editorial that you have, which may seem so prevalent and present with you and in your camp, it don't mean shit when you walk outside your building, right? Or it don't mean nothing when you walk outside your office. Or if somebody go to the next website, everything that you got on yours, it don't mean shit, right? And then even the people that you feel that you got like a following, they following you. Sometimes they just following to watch. They're not, they there to see. Like, I got fans, quote unquote, where they're there for the whole ride, right? The ups, the downs, the bullshit, the good shit, the celebrations, the bad shit. And they just like to see shit happen, but they not gonna buy no albums. You know what I'm saying? Like, they not gonna come to no shows, but they would still just be like, yeah, I like this song, I like that song, but it's the whole narrative, right? I think everybody got levels in their audiences and break down like that. So at a certain point, like, can you ban somebody from Twitter? Sure. But does that affect them in real life? So take like Rush Limbaugh, right? Rest in peace, because that's just how I am. But Limbaugh was a racist. He's one of the most racist dudes, like, publicly, in public. If you got a radio, you could turn it on and hear this nigga just spout the most racist shit ever, and not even hiding it, right? And I remember I had to check myself before I spoke on him. And I remember I used to just ride around listening to conservative radio all day. So I used to listen to the Blaze, used to listen to all that shit all day, just to make sure that before I committed this to record, that I was like being actual factual and can stand on it even after he dies. Like, that nigga was a racist, right? But Rush Limbaugh was worth $500 million. Right?
For being a racist.
Like 500 million. Got the presidential awards, got the whole shit, a whole empire, right? And it was like, he been canceled. He been canceled for 50 years. You know?
I think it's important to understand that, cancel people have fans too. Racists have fans too.
You just got to find your audience. 100%. You just got to find your audience. When you acquire that kind of target market, you just kind of cater to them. But the thing with being canceled is that it can kind of put you more on the fringe. So Rush Limbaugh, after he got canceled by the mainstream, he went more and more to the right. It went more and more crazy because that's what they liked. You got to feed the animals kind of thing. You know what I mean?
And I would say that there's potentially much more value to be had canceled. And when I say canceled, again, pushed out of the mainstream and then you down into the what people kind of consider to be, I don't know why. Maybe this is something that's just me. Maybe y'all share this as well. But like, there's value down there, right? There's value in getting kicked off the stage and having to go down into the crowd or into the basements. It ain't like it ain't. That's where the diamond mines are underground. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, when you push people out, you expect like, oh, they ain't gonna be able to get no money. They ain't gonna be able to do this. They're not gonna have no fans. But really, it's a whole like legion and civilization of people down there that you're gonna make more money, get more acceptance, right? Get more free meals and all that shit down there than you would ever get being at the heights of the mainstream, right? You could be in the mainstream and be broke as fuck, right? But you out there getting invited to shit, but they ain't paying your bills. But if you down in the dungeons, right, in the trenches, I mean, you get all type of perks.
Yeah.
I agree. I think what it boils down to is the wrong people have, it depends who has the cancel button. But I think there's even a bigger trend where it's much harder to cancel someone because previously, say radio, say Rush Limbaugh, say radio, there were a few gatekeepers. So as long as those gatekeepers were the right people that had the cancel button, then you can be canceled from doing what you wanted to do in that space. Now, as we move forward and technology allows us to democratize things like radio, where I can have my own radio station or I can have my own YouTube channel and no one can stop me. So there are less gatekeepers because everything's being democratized now. And for that reason, the cancel button is really hard to use because the gatekeepers, there are less of them, or they're much more. Like, it would have to be all these platforms would have to all band together to officially cancel you.
If I may, I would love to. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Paul.
But that's smoke and mirrors too, man. Like you think they don't like control like Spotify lists and streaming it? It gives you like this Lupe was saying, it's shadow banning. But I think there's different levels to this shit. Like, Lupe, I've been studying music since 11 years old at Nina Simone's house. Like, when you got fucked at Atlantic, I used to talk to Daryl all the time. I worked at BET and radio programming. And the shit, that was more systematic, like how all the decisions, because I kept saying, when's it coming? When's it coming? When's it? And I heard all these excuses and then found out backstories. And it brought me back to like Chuck D. And I knew Chuck got canceled. Like, they just canceled the whole era, motherfuckers. They said you were too old. Now you can be 55 putting out a record.
Yeah, Public Enemy got canceled for sure. But Chuck got canceled for sure. Ageism, political outlooks, all that. But
Lupe, what would it mean to you to be canceled in the Far East?
In the Far East? What do you mean Far East?
So like Japan, South Korea, like these sort of places. Like, what does it mean to be canceled out there?
There's a we finna get political real quick. But great conversation. Just so folks know, just to reset real quick, started this room while I was just going to test. Shout out to my brother Dante, who was the first one in. Well, I was just going to test and see if people wanted to hear my cancel stories. And I kind of made the claim that I am the most canceled person in hip hop. And now we're kind of getting into, just discussing cancel culture, stuff like that. I believe that cancel culture at this point is ineffective. And there's things you can do if you wanted it to be effective, right? So that's where we are now. So we're going into kind of rabbit holes and stuff like that. But if you have any questions or issues about cancel culture, if you feel that you're the most canceled person in hip hop, you want to kind of go to war with your boy, we could share the pain. To your point about the Far East, right? So what people may not really understand or be aware of in places like Japan, places like South Korea, it aesthetically, it comes across as very democratic, right? It comes across as these are the sons and daughters of democracy in America, right? But they're closer to China than we think. And in the sense that authoritarianism, it's democracy filtered through a certain level of authoritarianism, and the authoritarianism is very much so in the shadows, but in the mainstream, if it makes any sense. It sounds kind of like a paradox. So I have to say that there's a certain checks and balance that is done where they'll make examples out of people, right, to keep the status quo, to keep things looking stable. So you might not have done nothing, right? Or you might have done something that was really small, but it's an opportunity to say, hey, we need somebody to scapegoat for the culture real quick, politically or what have you. So you could have done something that was just really, again, unintentional, but because they need a scandal, you're now targeted for that scandal, right? So it happens in Japanese politics all the time, right? There's a whole kind of industry around that aspect. Like Like, how did all these reporters get here? Right? Like one of those. Like, this was supposed to, you get arrested sometimes, don't nobody even know you're arrested. Right? But in Japan, it'd be like, yo, there's a whole news crew out here. Like, who called the news to let them know I was getting arrested for this, for leaving a bagel in the bathroom, So there are aspects where it's a little bit more, the canceling is a little bit more directed, right? With a political goal or a social goal overall. And they have no problem pulling that trigger, right? So in Japan, for instance, like the prison system, right? So you think like, oh, Japan prison, we got to be more like Japan. Like, no, you don't, right? Because everybody who gets arrested gets convicted. Like, their like conviction rate is like 99%. That has to be impossible, right? But they only pick the cases that they're gonna win. So it's like a double, it's like a doozy on both sides, right? Because it's like, we're not even gonna approach it if we can't win, but we're gonna approach every case that we can win, whether you did the shit or not. Right? So it's people sitting in Japanese prisons that are just like, I don't even know what I'm doing. Right? There was a great story of the one dude who had to flee the country in like a road case. Like, just when you kind of peel back the layers a little bit, and especially in the Far East, and you think, okay, it would be more just, or it would be comparative to what you see in the US, you would prefer to be in prison here, right? When you got death penalty there, you don't even know when you're gonna die. They just come get you. So you're sitting in there just waiting, and they just pop up one day like, time to go, So it may seem like, that's minuscule, but it's rife throughout the country, where you could just say some shit and get arrested, or not say some shit. You think you cool, like you've been chilling one day and hanging out with folks, like, hey man, what's going on? We going to work today? Like, yeah, come on in, John. You hanging with us? And then the very next day, you in prison. Right?
I mean, were you ever politically active out there?
No. I mean, my relationship to the Far East is just as an observer. I play my role. But I also have kind of studied like Japanese politics specifically. If you think of a place like South Korea, like if you go back just through their presidents, a lot of their presidents are in prison. Right? Like the president of Korea is in jail, right? And then the president before that go to jail. It's almost like if you're going to be a Korean president, as soon as you get out of office, you're going to jail, right? Because you're going to get brought up on some corruption charge, or the next regime that's coming in, the opposition is going to like now cancel everything you did, and then bring you up on that you got that gift from that dude, but that's bribery. So now you're going to go to jail. It's real shit.
So the standard for cancellation is way different out there in the Far East.
I think it's more endemic in the culture, and I think it's been given more of a purpose. But I think Biden coming in, just rewriting all of the executive orders, is that not cancel culture? For good or bad. I don't agree that there should be a wall, but you come in and you basically, Trump did it to Obama. Obama did some shit to George Bush. Biden just did some shit to Trump. Whoever's coming in after Biden is going to do the same shit.
If I may, I would love to know what you guys think about the idea of, I guess, cancel culture in the U.S. and how it may hide behind like an idea of like, if somebody goes against our value system, then we cancel them. And, there's some great examples of that people deserve to be canceled. But I feel like the value system in America, if we're being honest, is always going to be the dollar. That's why like people like Tiger Woods, like Nike didn't, leave him, because, there's still money to be made there. So I feel like we pretend as if it's like our value systems that are like our morals and things like that, but it's really just the dollar. And if you fuck with the money, then you get canceled. Like, what do you guys think about that?
I think there's a lot of truth to that, and what's connected to the money now, right, is, capital P, progressive culture, right? Like the type of culture where you walk into a bank and you see, a rainbow flag, but the person that put that up could probably care less about it, about the rights of so-and-so. It's just really like the thing you got to do to show and virtue signal and say that you're woke, right? It's this kind of like facade. There's like this performance art to kind of like, who can be the most woke, right? And like who can kind of live within the lines that are kind of be set upon you on like what is appropriate to say, don't offend anybody, intent doesn't matter, right? So there's all these kind of little episodes that you hear from people about kind of like, and it doesn't open a kind of a dialogue to have a kind of conversation, because you ever see somebody apologize on Twitter, it totally makes it worse. You know, if they apologize on Twitter, it shows that they're culpable, but really maybe they just felt bad for hurting someone's feelings. You know, maybe they misspoke, maybe they stepped out of bounds, maybe they were ignorant about something. Like most, so here's another example, right? Like most Latinos I know, they don't know what Latinx is, and let alone use it. Some of them don't care if you use it, but they don't actually know about that. And that's kind of a new thing. So like language and culture is changing, and that's normal, you know? So like that's part of language. So it's kind of like, to answer your kind of question, in my view, tell me what you guys think, it's just kind of like money is connected to the dominant culture. And right now, especially in arts in North America, Western Europe, and leaking out, because, you know, what we do here, they're going to do in Asia tomorrow. It is fundamentally about kind of environmentalism, you know, minority rights, all these things. And that's a good thing. But also, where is the room for forgiveness as maybe more old school people, or maybe just people that kind of are not in the know, make a mistake and kind of use the wrong kind of speech, you know? So that's kind of my take on that.
I will say to the Far East point, that cancel culture in the Far East works. I will say that, but it's like cancel you in real life kind of piece. So just to bookend on that one. Who we got? Hold on, let's PTR real quick so we get like a nice order. Ruben, welcome to Clubhouse. We're talking about cancel culture. It started off with me giving my stories of actually being canceled, and how I don't think it worked. But what do you think? What you got? Or Felix, if you want to take it, you can go ahead.
Can you repeat the question again?
It wasn't really a question. We just started this room. You know, I was telling my canceled, the stories of me being canceled in real life, because a lot of people haven't actually been canceled before. And so I've been canceled in real life and canceled, you know, socially and in new 20, maybe not in 2020 terms, but I've never really done anything bad. You know, I've never like fucked anybody over, did nothing like that.
I wanted to, okay, I guess what kind of got me is that I seen the conversation kind of going in a different direction, but the cool thing is or what I wanted to say or ask you rather is do you really believe, I know I do really believe that you have been one of the people that were kind of like canceled, but how big is like, what are you being canceled from? Is it the machine? Like, I guess quotation, the machine that we look at, it's like the music industry or pop culture or whatnot. Like, somebody had brought up a point of being that now we have so many different tools to use, that maybe we don't need to be in some of these same rooms that at one point maybe you needed to be in order to be whatever, reach certain levels of success within a certain industry. Um, I don't know. I'm asking, do you believe that it's possible to truly be canceled? And I know you said in real life sometimes it's different, because you might not be invited to a certain event, but then you end up being in these same rooms with these same people anyway. But do you think that it's even needed? The music industry is even needed in the same way that it was 10, 15 years ago?
Man, maybe Paul, you chime in as well, right? Being us both coming from that space, and I was in the business prior to it being digital, you know, so we were still pressing tapes, you know. I still think that there's a certain necessity for the music business, the traditional kind, because of back office, right? So back office is a big thing, right? It's one thing for you to just kind of like throw up something on TuneCore and then even forget that you even put the shit up. But it's another thing to have a building, you know, 4 floors of people whose whole job, you know, from 9 to 5 is picking up, calling phones, you know, or, you know, putting your name in conversations all around the world, right? So there's nothing that can replace. Twitter can't replace that. You know, YouTube can't replace that. And I think even if you see some of these bigger, like even like low level kind of YouTube channels that are like really successful, I mean, they still have a back office. It may not be as massive as someone else's, but it's management. They might be on an agency, right? So I've seen some dude's YouTube channel, they was doing that shit out of an agency. It was on the studio, you know? And it's like, yeah, that makes sense, you know? So yeah, there's some folks that are very kind of boutique that can just, you know, throw up something and they get a bunch of odds because their content is that engaging, or their relationship to their fan base is super solid. But I think for the majority of folks, you live or die by your back office, and the traditional music business